A millionaire decided to sell, at auction, an indomitable horse, believing that no one would be able to tame it. However, when a 7-year-old boy appeared and approached the animal, what happened left everyone speechless. What that boy did with the horse would not only change the life of the animal, but also that of him and all those present at the auction. The millionaire's property, located on the hills, looked more like a prison than a place for the horse to live. With its imposing size and ferocious temperament, the animal was nicknamed Indomitable. No one could get close without suffering the consequences of its wild strength. All attempts to tame it ended in disaster, leaving workers injured. Tired of losses, the millionaire decided to get rid of the horse. "It is too dangerous, I cannot continue with it," he said, looking out the window of his office. The horse, isolated from the other animals, kicked the fences of the fence under the scorching sun, as if it knew that its fate was about to change. But no one there knew that the real challenge would not be to sell it, but to find someone able to understand it. Julian was only 7 years old, but his love for horses was as great as the dream of having one. He lived on a simple farm, where his family could barely meet the basic needs. Even so, Julian did not complain. Sometimes he escaped to see the millionaire's horses grazing in the distance, admiring them as majestic creatures. Despite the dreams, his mother always told him to think of more possible things, but Julian never lost hope. One day, he heard men talking about the auction of the indomitable horse. His eyes shone with emotion. He ran home and told everything to his mother, who, worried, reminded him of reality. They would never have money for something like that, but something inside Julian insisted on not giving up. That night, lying in his bed, Julian thought about how he would get the money. The next day, he began to do small jobs. He cleaned stables, cut firewood, and harvested fruits. Each coin seemed insufficient, but he kept going. He felt that that horse needed someone to understand it, just as he himself wanted to be understood. The weekend came, and with his backpack full of coins, Julian went to the auction. The square was full of anxious adults. When the millionaire appeared with the horse, Julian felt that his life was about to change. The auction began, but the millionaire, even determined to sell, felt discomfort. He thought about how someone could get what he could not get, to tame that wild animal. But seeing the curious crowd, he understood that perhaps the biggest challenge was to find someone who could really see beyond the fury of the horse, someone capable of offering him understanding, not domination. The millionaire leaned back in his chair with a slight smile of satisfaction, watching the bidders approach, some with interest, others with skepticism. It was then that he noticed that the boy Julian was not like the others. He did not wear expensive fur, nor shiny shoes, nor did he display an arrogant posture. What he had was pure determination, almost unbreakable, reflected in his eyes. With his backpack full of hard-won coins, Julian approached the place where the horse was being prepared. The millionaire looked at him with curiosity and perplexity. What could such a small child do there? What could he offer the horse that someone more experienced could not? Julian, in turn, only saw the horse. He knew he had no money to compete, but something inside him propelled him to try. It was not just the desire to own the animal, but the need to help that lonely and misunderstood being. He saw in him an internal struggle that others could not see. It was not just a wild horse, but a soul that needed someone with patience. The millionaire was surprised to see the boy approach the stall. There was no fear in his face, just a strange calm, as if he already knew him. The horse initially maintained its challenging attitude, snorting furiously, but Julian did not retreat. He faced him with a disarming calm. The millionaire, in silence, never saw anyone approach a horse like that without fear, but also without the intention of dominating it, just wanting to share the space, to understand him. "What did this child see that I do not see?" he asked. Something inside him began to doubt his certainties. As Julian approached, the horse began to calm down. His breathing softened. His gaze became calmer. The boy did nothing special, just stayed there with a firm presence, looking at the animal as if he understood his pain. The millionaire felt a knot in his stomach. And if the boy could tame him? And if the horse found peace with someone so young? At that moment he realized that the auction was not just about money, it was something deeper. The boy had a connection with the horse that he would never have. While the sun was setting, tinging the sky orange and red, the square was full of expectation. Julian, with his baggy backpack, looked nervous. He was surrounded by adults with expensive turns, but he would not let that stop him. His dream of taking care of a horse kept him firm. The millionaire, next to the animal, saw the bidders. Some, just wanting to display the horse in their stables, others saw it as a challenge to be dominated. No one saw what Julian saw, a spark of hope. When the auction began, high spears echoed. Julian watched with his heart on fire. Each value looked like an impenetrable wall, but something inside it kept him from staying. He knew it was his only chance. Straying from the spears, he approached the horse, sat on the floor looking at it without blinking. He didn't say a word. He just stood there in silence, ready to wait for the time to come. The millionaire, intrigued, watched. How could a child without wealth or experience have such a presence? The horse, before being aggressive, began to calm down. For the first time, it seemed that someone had touched something inside it. The millionaire, disconcerted, felt challenged in his beliefs. The dispute continued, but in his mind, the real battle had begun between the power of money and the power of empathy. And for the first time, he began to wonder if his approach was wrong. Questions flooded his mind. What had he done so wrong to treat the horse as an object? Perhaps the way he treated it had been wrong from the beginning. The murmur of the audience increased, and part of Julian wanted to look around, see all the eyes focused on him, in his innocent expression, but determined. But he didn't. Instead, his gaze remained fixed on the horse's eyes, which now seemed calmer, as if something inside it was opening. The boy knew. The horse was not just an animal to be tamed and controlled. There was something else in his gaze, something he asked to be heard, not dominated. He didn't need strength, but respect. The auction continued, but the moment between the boy and the horse extended as if time had stopped for them. The millionaire, who had already lost interest in the event, was fascinated. What did that boy have that the others didn't? How could a sincere look calm such a frightened and out-of-control horse? Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Lilero's hammer fell with a loud sound. Sold, screamed, and the crowd applauded. But Julian's eyes, although full of hope, didn't shine with triumph. He didn't feel like a winner or pay attention to the value he had offered, as if the amount was irrelevant. In his heart, what mattered was that the horse would be his, and with him the chance to lead a different future. The millionaire approached the boy, who was still on the ground, with slow and hesitant steps. His eyes met, and for a moment everything was silent. The crowd seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of them before the sold animal. "Did you make it?" the millionaire asked, his voice hoarse, as if he didn't believe what he said. Julian nodded, getting up slowly and approaching the horse. The difference between him and the other bidders was evident. It wasn't the money that allowed him to lead the animal, but something deeper, something that no one else could see. "Yes, I made it," answered Julian with a determination that surprised even the millionaire. "Not with money, but with patience. I know I can help you." The millionaire looked at the boy, and a strange feeling invaded him. Always treating animals as objects means for an end, but now, seeing that boy, he realized that there was something else, something he never understood. The horse didn't need to be dominated, it needed to be understood, and that boy, with his pure heart, seemed to be the only one capable of that. The boy walked towards the stall, but the millionaire stopped him with his hand on his shoulder. "Are you sure of what you're doing?" He whistled in a low voice, but full of concern. Julian looked at him, and for a moment he saw in the millionaire's eyes a vulnerability that he had never noticed in such a confident man. "I have it," answered, firmly turning to the horse. "I won't force you, I just want to help you." The millionaire watched the boy approach the horse with impressive calm. The animal, once furious, now remained still, as if it also felt that change, At that moment, the millionaire understood that Boy didn't want to impose his will on the world. He wanted to be part of it, understand it. And so, while the auction continued, a new story began. The story of a boy, a horse, and a man who, for the first time, were going to discover together what it meant to be truly free. The sun had already set when Julian returned home with the wild horse. He didn't hold back his emotion as he walked through the farm, the animal following him, calm for the first time. However, a concern grew in his heart. The horse was safe. Yes, but he didn't have the resources to offer him everything he needed. He knew that even though he had won the auction, the real fight began now. He arrived home where his mother was waiting for him at the door, eyes full of doubt. Despite trying to be positive, he knew that the situation was complicated. Julian barely raised money for the auction, and now had the responsibility to take care of a large and expensive animal. Julian asked his worried mother, "Do you really think you can do it?" Without taking his eyes off the horse, Julian said yes. He knew it would be difficult, but he couldn't give up. The horse needed him, and even with fear corroding him inside, he smiled. "I'll make it, Mom." His voice trembled, but his determination was clear. The mother, with love and concern, said yes in silence. The following days were full of conflicting emotions. The bond between Julian and the horse grew, but the financial reality weighed heavily. He needed food, a stable, medical care. Julian worked harder, helping neighbors, cutting firewood, and harvesting. Each penny was kept, but the feeling of inadequacy increased. He wasn't enough. One afternoon, he saw the millionaire watching from afar. The man approached slowly. "I see you're taking care of him," he said, looking at the horse with admiration and disapproval. "I'll do my best," replied Julian, although doubts consumed him. After a silence, the millionaire said, "This horse has gone through a lot. Hard work is not enough. It needs resources that I can help provide. If you guarantee that he will have the right training, it won't be easy, but you seem willing." Julian hesitated, but he knew the millionaire was right. "I'll take it," he said, with the most determined voice he ever had. The millionaire agreed, and without saying anything else, he turned to leave. Julian watched him leave, and for a moment he felt like he was walking on a rope, not knowing if the offer was a real opportunity or just an empty promise. All he knew was that with or without help, he would continue to fight for the horse because, like the animal, he also deserved a chance. The morning wind gently caressed Julian's face as he got up before dawn, as he always did since the indomitable horse came into his life. Despite the daily challenges, the presence of the animal gave him strength to move on. The sun began to set, tinging the sky with warm shades, and the boy was already on his way to the stable, where the horse was patiently waiting for him. Julian had learned to observe the animal, to understand its gestures and silent sighs. Although the horse was a challenge from the beginning, every day he felt a little closer to it. The animal, which used to reject everyone, began to accept its presence. It was a slow process, but Julian was willing to follow each step with the same patience he had always shown. He knew it would not be easy, and that it would not change the nature of the horse from night to day. But he understood that constant effort and unwavering dedication were what really mattered. However, that day seemed heavier than the others. Tired of the long working days and the constant effort to get the money he needed so much, Julian felt the weight of responsibility at every step. The horse required constant care, and even with the millionaire's promise of help with basic supplements, he did not want to depend on anyone. He needed to learn to do everything by himself, to be strong not only for himself, but for the animal that had decided to trust him. When he arrived at the stable, he saw the horse in his corner, observing it with those deep eyes that, although they still showed some distrust, began to soften. The boy smiled, approached slowly, and offered him a branch of mint that he had picked that morning. The horse smelled it, and for a moment Julian thought it would be rejected again. But something had changed. The animal accepted the branch with caution, and the boy felt a warm satisfaction in his chest. It was a small step, but for him it was a gigantic leap. The connection between the two grew. He was no longer just a wild animal bought by impulse. Now he was his companion, his friend, and Julian saw him differently. He learned that the horse needed more than food and shelter. He needed patience and confidence, something that, like him, he had lost a long time ago. But the weight of the situation continued. Money was still a problem, as was the lack of time. Working in the fields, helping neighbors for some coins, Julian could barely cover the basics. Life was not easy, and the dream of having a horse seemed like a luxury that vanished among the daily difficulties. One day, while resting in the shade of a tree, the millionaire appeared again. Julian, exhausted, looked at him without surprise, but with some concern. What did he want now? "I was watching you," said the man. "I never imagined that this horse could be so calm. And I'm not just talking about the animal." Julian looked up, tired but firm. "I don't care what you think of him," he replied, although his words sounded empty, as if he were also talking about himself. The millionaire smiled, realizing that something had changed in the boy. "You don't have to do everything by yourself," he said in a softer tone. "I thought about how I could help him in addition to the supplies. I can offer a little financial help on one condition: that he continue doing what he started here, his way." Julian remained silent, pondering. He knew that accepting would change things, but it would be worth it. "I'll do it for him," he finally said, looking at the horse which was slowly walking towards them, as if he also felt that something new was about to come. At that moment, the millionaire appeared along the way, approaching with firm steps. There was something different in his posture, as if his gaze was more determined, more open. Julian Lameros Wassler knew that meeting would define not only his future with the horse, but also the course of his life. "I was thinking," said the millionaire, stopping in front of him. Julian remained silent, just watching him, waiting for what would come. "I said I could help him with supplies, but I didn't tell him that I could offer something else." The millionaire paused, looking at the boy in a way that transcended a simple financial transaction. "I'm not just offering money, Julian. I'm offering an opportunity to grow. I can help you improve the conditions of your farm, provide what your horse needs, and much more. You two together can achieve what I never could. Understand each other. This is worth more than any wealth I can give you." Julian felt a mixture of feelings. The temptation was great, but something inside him said that it was not yet time to give up, that he needed to maintain his independence. "I don't want to be a burden to you," he answered with a firm voice but full of doubts. "I want to do this for me, for him." The millionaire faced him in silence, as if he were already waiting for this answer. He took a step forward, and calmly, as someone who understands life, said, "You are not a burden, Julian. You are someone with a purpose. And that's what makes me believe that in the end what this horse needs is not just a home, but someone who never gives up on it. You have that. I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. I'm offering you a chance to achieve this in a better way for both of you. You don't need to carry everything alone." Julian looked at the millionaire, and for a moment, he felt taken by the offer, but he knew he couldn't refuse. It wasn't just about the horse, it was about himself. It was the opportunity to build something beyond the material, something that would allow him to live with dignity without abandoning his dream. "All right," he finally said with determination. "I accept, but it will be my way." The millionaire smiled, and for the first time Julian saw in him something he had never seen before: respect. The boy knew it was the beginning of a new stage, not just for him but also for his friend, the indomitable horse. The days passed, slowly, but for Julian, every minute by the horse's side was a gift. The bond between them was more than a relationship between owner and animal. It was an alliance of patience, understanding, and mutual respect. Although the horse remained strong and challenging, something had changed since Julian started taking care of him. He learned to read his movements, understand his gestures, signs that others ignored, but that for him were a complete language. By arriving at the stable, the horse was already waiting for him. The connection between them was clear. With a calm gesture, Julian approached and extended his hand. The horse allowed, his approach without resistance. It was a significant moment, the first in which he felt that the animal really trusted him. While caressing the horse's neck, Julian remembered the difficulties he had faced so far, but now everything seemed small in the face of the friendship he had built. He knew it wouldn't be easy. There was still a lot of work, but that connection was something that no money could buy. That night, sitting next to the stable, watching the horse sleep in peace, Julian understood that he was no longer alone. He had a companion, and together, they could face any challenge. Both had found something they needed, the horse a refuge of peace, Julian a purpose, and a faithful friend. The wind blew gently, and Julian closed his eyes, feeling the bond that bound them. He knew that was just the beginning. As the millionaire said, the horse needed to be understood, and Julian would discover the key to this: patience, dedication, and unconditional love. It was a bond that had formed over time. Patience and dedication. But at the same time, the responsibility that weighed on him didn't disappear. The food, the care, the tools necessary for the stable, everything demanded more resources than he had. The millionaire had offered help, but Julian still didn't know how to accept this extended hand without feeling vulnerable. That afternoon, with the sun already starting to set, while he was standing, the millionaire appeared again, as if he knew that was the right time to speak. This time, his presence was not imposing but discreet. Julian heard him approach while taking care of the horse, and without saying a word, the man stopped by his side. Both watched the animal for a long time, as if sharing a silent accomplice. Finally, the millionaire broke the silence. "I was thinking a lot about what you told me," he said in a low voice, trying to find the right words. "About not depending on me, about doing things your way, and I respect that, Julian. You are a boy of principles, but I know things won't be easy for you, and that worries me." Julian didn't look at him, but listened attentively. The millionaire continued. "My proposal is not just about money. It is an investment, yes, but also an opportunity for you to learn more. I know you don't like to accept help, but I want to offer you something that can change your situation." Julian turned his head slowly, looking at him for the first time since the beginning of the conversation. His heart beat faster, but he didn't know how to respond. He didn't want to seem incapable, but he understood that accepting the offer could mean a better future for him and the horse. "What are you talking about?" he asked with curiosity and slight tension. The millionaire advanced, taking a piece of the stick and handing it to Julian. The boy looked at her without immediate understanding. The documents were graphic, plans that he didn't fully understand. "This," said the millionaire, "is a proposal to improve the conditions of your farm. There is a financing opportunity that will allow you to grow, not just for the horse, but for you too. I am willing to support you, but on one condition, that you continue on this path with the same passion and dedication that you have shown so far." Julian looked at the documents with disbelief. He had heard of financing programs, but he never thought that someone like him could be chosen. The millionaire looked at him with seriousness, but with a gleam of hope in his eyes. He knew that Julian had potential, but without the right resources, opportunities would remain out of reach. "It's not just money, Julian. It's a chance to grow what you started, to give the horse and yourself a future, so that it can learn everything about taking care of animals, and more importantly, to create a future without fighting every day for every penny." The boy remained silent. The offer was tempting, but he felt a weight in his heart. Would this be the right path? Could he accept help without betraying his independence? For a moment he thought of refusing. He wanted to do everything his way, but when he looked at the horse, which was slowly approaching, a clarity took hold of him. The horse needed more than work and sacrifice. It needed an environment where it could thrive. "I accept," he said firmly, "but serenity. But it will be my way. I don't want this to change who I am or what we build. I just want to guarantee that we will have a future." The millionaire accepted, satisfied. What matters is that he does it for himself, for the horse, and for everything he has proven. He won't be alone, Julian. The boy smiled shyly at the horse. maybe it was the beginning of something bigger. The days passed quickly. Since Julian accepted the offer, his life changed unexpectedly, but he kept his focus on the essential. The horse, formerly considered indomitable, showed a serenity never seen before. Their relationship was not of domination, but of understanding, a silent communion that grew every day. Money alleviated immediate pressures. Now Julian could buy more milk, guarantee veterinary care, and improve the stable. But he knew that was just the beginning. He understood, at every challenge, what it meant to be responsible for another living being. That morning when he arrived, at the stable he found the horse calm, as if he understood that his life had changed. Julian approached slowly, not out of fear, but out of respect. The horse for the first time approached without hesitation, smelling his hand gently. In that simple gesture, Julian felt an indescribable connection. They shared something beyond care, a silent pact, a mutual understanding. Julian realized that the horse was not just a responsibility, but a companion on a journey that, although lonely, was sometimes shared. When he went to get more milk, he thought about how everything had changed. He began as a boy, dreaming of having a horse, without knowing what it meant to take care of a life. Now he learned that beyond animals, what matters is the human bond with them. Rewards don't always come in money, but in moments of genuine connection. The millionaire had opened a door, but Julian walked the path to the true reward, the unconditional love shared with the horse. What I mean is that you taught me something, Julian. When I offered my help, I didn't know if it would be well received. I thought that maybe you wanted to do everything by yourself, as if you depended only on yourself. But now I see that your courage doesn't just come from the effort, but from how you choose to face the difficulties. And that, my young friend, is something that few have. Julian lowered his head, feeling touched by the words of the man. The millionaire, seeing his silence, continued, "What I mean is that from now on you are not just a boy taking care of a horse. You are an example for all of us. The courage you have, the way you face the challenges, is something rare. And I don't want you to forget that you can always count on me if you need." Julian felt a mixture of emotions. On one hand, the weight of responsibility was still there, but on the other, something inside him seemed lighter. He finally raised his eyes and smiled. The relationship with the millionaire no longer seemed like an obligation, but a true alliance. "What matters most to me," Julian said, "is that the horse is well. The rest I'll do." The millionaire nodded, impressed with the boy's maturity. "I know, and that's why I'm helping you. But remember, Julian, the future is built day by day with the decisions we make, and you've already made the best of it. Follow your path with integrity." With these words, the millionaire walked away, leaving Julian with a renewed sense of purpose. He looked at the horse, which watched him with calm eyes, as if he also understood the importance of what had just been said. For the first time, Julian felt that he was not alone, that the path he chose would lead him not only to be a better caretaker, but also a better person. The afternoon wind caressed his skin as he walked home with the horse by his side. The sound of footsteps on the floor seemed to echo the peace he had won. Since he began his journey, everything has changed, not only the life of the indomitable horse, but also his. He built a solid relationship, a deep connection that transformed not only the animal, but his way of seeing the world and himself. Every day was a lesson, every silence a conversation between two souls learning to understand each other. The horse walked firmly, his eyes fixed on the boy as if he knew that the future depended on what they were building there. Julian smiled at him, feeling the complicity between them grow. That animal that was once seen as indomitable was now his companion, his friend. And more, the horse also taught him to be patient, to realize the little things that really matter in life. When he got home, he saw his mother at the door. Julian looked at her with gratitude and concern. She was always his pillar, supporting him, but he knew that her sacrifices did not go unnoticed. Now, with the horse, with the farm improving, with the help of the millionaire, he was no longer fighting alone, but there were still uncertainties. Despite the help, he asked himself if he was really prepared. "Mom, I promise I'm doing well. said Julian with confidence, but also with a slight sadness. He didn't know if he was doing the right thing. He knew the horse needed more, and so did he. His mother looked at him in silence for a moment. Her tired face reflected a serene acceptance. She knew that her son would change, that his life had taken another course, but that it was on the right path. "I know, son, I know,"